Says you want it, yeah. He's like their sweet shop. Anyway, £20,000 worth of free accommodation at Lord Wahid Ali's penthouse apartment in Covent Garden. It's worth 18 million quid. Keir apparently moved there with his 16-year-old son because his son wanted to revise in peace and quiet for his GCSE exams. Well, yeah, that's good. You know, kids should have the right to revise in peace and quiet. But you know, he can't go on like... He seems to think it's OK to say this. Oh, look, my son, you know, my boy, I wanted him to...
The Supreme Court has delivered a crushing blow to Keir Starmer, exposing a 124,000 scandal involving hidden income, luxury perks and abuse of power. The ruling didn't just criticise him, it stripped him of authority and triggered a full-blown constitutional crisis. Investigators found major discrepancies in property deals tied to Starmer. But that was only the beginning. As they dug deeper, they uncovered secret payments, donor perks, and a disturbing pattern of silencing critics, all pointing to a Prime Minister no longer fit to lead.
Has nearly doubled, growth has halved, and unemployment has surged. Is this what the Prime Minister meant when he tweeted that the economy is improving?
The financial irregularities were only the beginning. What emerged next painted a far darker picture. Investigators uncovered nearly 40,000 in unreported luxury items, including designer clothing, high-end wine collections, and private flights, all funneled quietly through wealthy donors. It wasn't just the gifts that raised eyebrows, it was what those donors got in return. Evidence suggests Starmer's office actively leaned on regulators to stifle rival voices, particularly Reform UK, in what appears to be a calculated misuse of executive power. Public backlash was immediate, with protesters surging into city centres and opposition leaders seizing the moment to demand snap elections. Even some Labour MPs turned against Starmer, accusing him of dragging the party into disgrace. But despite the torrent of outrage, the Prime Minister dug in, waved away the ruling as politically driven, and refused to step aside.
How can Keir Starmer tell us that he's going to clean up politics whilst taking £100,000 worth of freebies? How can he possibly do that? How can...
I haven't seen you for weeks,
Listen,
man.
we've got a new feature now. We don't just do micro interview, lie of the day now.
Lie of the day.
Lie of the day, which is obviously the first time in the morning that Keir Starmer tells a lie.
Yeah, well, it opens his
Usually
goal.
about 8 a.m.
Yes.
is when he puts his first lie out for us all to.
Well, I'll tell you what.
take in.
Let's go with them.
In that same interview you did with me back at the Labour Party conference, you told me why it was right to take £300 from 10 million pensioners. Why is it now right to reverse that decision?
Well, Nick, it was right.
That decision has now torn open a constitutional crisis. For the first time in modern history, a Prime Minister is openly defying the Supreme Court, leaving the UK teetering between legal collapse and political rebellion. The rule of law has been challenged, not by extremists or foreign actors, but by the very person sworn to uphold it. What the court revealed went beyond negligence, suggesting a deliberate cover-up behind the polished image of a rule-abiding reformer. Investigators traced a secretive financial empire, offshore accounts, backdoor payments, and questionable consulting fees that created a web of hidden wealth. With the 124,000 in missing property income just a surface detail, forensic accountants uncovered transfers routed through tax havens like Jersey and the Isle of Man, including a £52,000 consulting fee linked to a defence contractor, marked by a stench of influence trading. The most damning aspect wasn't the money, but the hypocrisy. As Starmer publicly attacked opponents for financial misconduct, he privately indulged in the same excesses, accepting jet travel, lavish accommodations, and even a luxury watch, all courtesy of billionaire allies. These were not gifts of admiration, but transactions with political price tags. One key donor reportedly demanded regulatory favours in exchange for continued support. and records show Starmer's government quietly delivered restrictions on the donors' competitors while shelving inquiries into potential tax abuse. The court described the arrangement as not just unethical, but a direct betrayal of the public's trust. As pressure mounted, insiders from Starmer's own party began breaking ranks, with whistleblowers from his finance team describing a culture built on secrecy and intimidation, where staff were instructed to tamper with financial records, shred documents, and remain silent or risk losing their jobs. One aide described a workplace where even asking questions about money could get you sidelined or sacked. And it didn't stop at internal suppression. Journalists investigating the scandal were allegedly targeted by government lawyers acting under Starmer's direction, with legal threats used not to protect national interests but to silence scrutiny. But the efforts weren't to protect national security, they were to shield a political figure from accountability. What started as a money trail now looked like a systematic plot to suppress scrutiny. With every revelation, allies began to disappear. Cabinet ministers prepared no confidence letters. Protests intensified outside Parliament, and legal analysts warned the Prime Minister could soon face criminal prosecution. Yet Starmer held on, isolated, embattled, and running out of room. Just when the financial scandal seemed like the worst, the court dropped another bombshell. Hidden in the full judgment was evidence that Starmer's team actively undermined democratic processes to neutralise political threats. Documents, emails, and testimony revealed a pattern of interference aimed squarely at Reform UK, using the machinery of government to block debate appearances, starve them of funding, and trigger tax audits against their donors. One internal memo from regulators suggested they were pressured to eliminate Reform UK from public discourse without legal grounds, while behind the scenes, Starmer's office even drafted changes to election finance laws to retroactively disqualify competitors. When legal teams warned of the consequences, he pushed forward anyway. The most shocking detail came from a former senior advisor who admitted to running a smear campaign designed to destroy opposition figures through planted stories and covert messaging. This wasn't strategy, it was sabotage, confirming a chilling truth. This Prime Minister wasn't just bending the rules, he was trying to rewrite them. The fallout was swift and explosive, with critics across party lines condemning what they viewed as a coordinated campaign to rig the democratic playing field. Even moderate Conservatives compared the tactics to authoritarian regimes, while civil liberties groups warned that Britain's democracy was being hollowed out from within. The Supreme Court didn't mince words, ruling that Starmer had crossed a red line, not just by abusing power, but by deliberately targeting political opposition through government channels. The implications were staggering. This wasn't about policy disagreements or partisan games. It was about a sitting Prime Minister using the weight of the state to dismantle the competition. As the country grappled with the scale of the crisis, one question echoed: if Reform UK was targeted this way, who else might have been? The case had escalated from financial misconduct to a fundamental attack on democratic norms. With Starmer refusing to resign, the crisis deepened into a full-blown constitutional showdown. Behind palace walls, royal advisers convened emergency meetings as pressure mounted on King Charles to act. The last time a monarch dismissed a prime minister was nearly 200 years ago, but now that ancient power was suddenly relevant. Legal scholars warned the UK was entering uncharted territory. The courts had issued their verdict, Parliament was gridlocked, and the Prime Minister stood defiant, branding the process a vendetta. Inside Windsor Castle, advisers outlined three options: a quiet ultimatum, a public rebuke during Parliament's opening, or a televised address declaring Starmer's government illegitimate. While the King deliberated, chaos erupted across Whitehall. The Cabinet Secretary restricted Starmer's access to sensitive systems, senior civil servants refused to carry out orders, and even the military raised alarms, refusing to follow potentially unlawful commands. For the first time in modern history, Britain's core institutions were operating independently of its elected leader and openly resisting him, with Downing Street transformed into a fortress under siege as resignations poured in. Including key cabinet members, Starmer's inner circle dwindled to loyalists and legal advisors. Inside Number 10, meetings turned frantic, with some aides reportedly destroying documents while others simply walked out mid-conference. Outside, streets swelled with protesters and armoured vehicles appeared near government buildings, a sight unseen in peacetime Britain. Internationally, panic spread. The United States issued a rare statement expressing concern over the UK's democratic stability. European leaders held emergency calls fearing ripple effects across the continent, and markets reacted brutally as the pound plummeted, forcing the Bank of England to halt trading twice in one day to contain the fallout. Even the Church of England, usually neutral, weighed in, with the Archbishop of Canterbury delivering a scathing sermon warning that no political office could outrank moral accountability. Meanwhile, King Charles abandoned his private retreat and returned to London, a move so unusual that palace historians compared it only to wartime protocol. All signs pointed to one conclusion: this was no longer just a government in crisis, it was a country on the edge. The tipping point came with Starmer's final televised speech, a desperate late attempt to reframe the chaos. Visibly shaken, he blamed entrenched elites for orchestrating his downfall and vowed to root out dissent within the civil service. But the response was immediate and brutal, with fact checks scrolling live on BBC screens as the broadcast aired.